Hi, this is Terry with Exactline Tools. Today we're doing a repair on a black Honda Pilot quarter panel. I love doing repairs on black cars. It really shows the precise mechanical shaping advantage you get only with the blade. Now I have worked with a number of very good technicians. However, a majority of them, if faced with a repair like this, would quit, saying there's not enough time given. I say, give me the book hours to replace it and the cost of a new quarter panel converted to hours, and I'm happy, having fun, doing what I love. And they give it to me, of course. The insurance company saves money. The body shop makes money. The customer wins by retaining the original precision-fitted quarter panel, all the precision spot welds, factory seam seal, and OEM corrosion protection, and a fast turnaround. We can see here that I have knocked down the paint with an abrasive wheel to attach the nails. Now I'm just doing a quick pulling out of the majority of the damage, not spending too much time roughing it out and trying to achieve a perfect shape. I'm moving through it quite quickly, and I'm just pulling the nails, getting it to pull the majority of the deep indentation out, hammering it down as I go with pressure on the panel, pulling it out with the simple arrangement I use for pulling, which is a cable jack and a vice grip that's been adapted to just grab the nails and pull them. And I'm just hammering down the areas, bringing it back into the shape I need in order to convey a perfect shape with the blade, where the high spots aren't too high and the low spots are not too low. We'll just continue to move these around, tape and pulling it and straightening it. Now here I'm using the Spitznagel, and I'm doing the finer work here, if you will, pulling out the minor waves and indentations. And this works really great for this. It's a little gentler way of going about it when you only have small deviations to correct. We continue to do this until we get it roughed out to the point where we can start blading it. Now we're looking towards the front of the car, and we can see that the panel is relatively straight, definitely within shape to start building the plastic filler on it with. It has a lot of waves and deviations, but we're going to correct all those with factory precision shape using the blade. Again, we're looking at it towards the rear of the car, and we can see that it's got quite a bit of waves and imperfections, but that's all going to be worked out with the blade. Here we can see we've sanded it back, the paint where I pulled it, and sanded it with 180 grit, the area to cover with the filler, extended all the way out so the plastic filler can adhere. Now I'm standing looking down the quarter panel, seeing if the blade transitions across those areas without having anything that goes outside the parameters which are necessary to get the correct shape, high or low. Again, we're going to do a test sweep and check and see if there's anything that's outstanding, that's still low, that needs to be pulled. Now what I'm doing here is I'm showing that there's a radius that runs from the back of the car to the front of the car. We call it the horizontal radius. And that's what we're duplicating right now with this sweep. We're going to do our first sweep, and we're going to aim to fill the center section of this damaged area. I'm applying my plastic filler, and I'm making sure that we have a nice tightly pressed coat of plastic filler on all this area that we have shaped, straightened out, and prepared the surface by sanding it with 180 grit, preparing it for the plastic filler to adhere. We're applying the plastic filler. We're not trying to make it look too beautiful right now, because I really can't control the shape with the accuracy that the blade will, so I'm just getting it on there so I can shape it with the blade. Now we're taking the number 1 blade and we're moving from top to bottom. What I'm doing here is I have a span of the blade that I'm using between my right hand and my left hand. And if you notice, while I'm making my sweeps, I am pressing tightly on both sides. On my right hand and my left hand, I'm pressing down tightly on the blade. What I'm aiming to do is to move that plastic filler and organize it across the entire area that I'm working right now, and press it down so it meters it out to 0 at both the right side and the left side. At the same time, I am creating a perfect horizontal radius, the radius that runs from tail light to headlight down the entire side of the car. That's our first order of concern. We get that worked out. And you can see on either side that the plastic filler is metered out to 0. That's why I'm removing a little bit from the left side there and making my sweep down the quarter panel again. That looks pretty good. Now, before it hardens completely, I'm trimming off all that extra plastic filler that falls outside of that area, that span that I held between my two hands using the blade, because I don't need any of that. The areas that show through on the right side and the left side, the black paint, is what's holding the panel, what's holding the blade where I press it down, and that's all I need to accomplish there. I'm trimming it off a little bit. I'm using a spring steel spreader, which you can buy at your paint store, and I sharpen it so it cuts the plastic filler, and I remove the most of it. Keeping it clean will make the job go really quick. Here I'm putting the heating lamp on it and curing the plastic filler real quick like, and taking a moment to warm my hands, because it's a cold shop I'm working in. Now with 150 grit, I like to use 150 or 180 grit, a fine paper, to knock this down. And this all goes pretty quick. I can do this process all day long, applying the plastic filler with a sweep, putting the ultraviolet lamp on it, and curing it, letting it cool for a few minutes, and sanding it like I'm doing now. And I can get a lot of work done over the course of a day doing this. I'm knocking down the plastic filler just a little bit on the surface there, just trying to smooth it down a little bit. Don't let the rough looking surface fool you at this point, where I have set the foundation for a perfect repair. Now I've changed the paper and I'm lightly sanding it with 180 grit on that area that I held the blade down tightly and metered the plastic filler down to 0. All I'm trying to do here is accomplish a precise radius through that center section, which I will then build on the right and left of that with the next sweeps. None of these sweeps are difficult, as you can see, and the sanding that I'm doing does not require a tremendous amount of skill, but it does the job, and it accomplishes what we need to do right now. Smoothing it down a little bit more. Now we can see that there's some lines that radiate across the section of what I'm working right now. The those ones right there are the radius that I wanted to build, and those are going to be just fine for doing my vertical radius when I get to that point. Now I've just marked off the style line, and I am applying my tape, and I'm going to start working the upper area. Now I know I have to do more filling here and there, but there's a low spot there and a low spot there I can see straight away, which I want to fill. So I've got it sanded, and I mixed up some plastic filler, and I'm going to fill those spots just to clean it up and to continue the radius that runs horizontally in that area. That is going to support a vertical radius when I get to that point. That would be the blade from top to bottom. This just cleans it up a little bit here. I'm happy with that. And now we're going to apply plastic filler to that top section that I marked out and do a sweep there, which will complete the left side of the repair up top. Running the blade across it, you can see a low spot that I need to fill there. As I move and organize the plastic filler, I'm going to remove it from the edge of the blade and stick it up there where I need it and do my sweep. And now we have a beautiful shape up on the top section from the center of the first sweep I did to the end. We're done there. Now I'm going to clean up the bottom sweep because I nicked it when I was transitioning across the top section. I'll put the extra filler right in that area and do a sweep down again. And we'll just do a few sweeps. Running a little low on mud here, but that's okay. I'm going to try to get a nice sweep. If it's not perfect, that'll be all right. That one looks pretty good, but let me try another one. And now we got a little bit of a gap in the plastic filler. Again, not a problem. We'll pick that up in the next sweep. All at the same time retaining that precise horizontal radius. I got the heat lamp on there again. I'm warming up my hands. I'm curing the plastic filler really quick-like. And before it gets too hard, I want to trim off any excess with the spring steel spreader that I've sharpened, and just knocking off any area. Keeping it clean will make this job go really quick. All right, we're going to knock down this area above the style line with 180 grit, smoothing it into the area that I originally did my sweep on, which already has a correct radius horizontally, and just moving over it, just smoothing it down a little bit. The blade has given these areas that I've swept so far very precise shape that only a mechanical mechanism can achieve so quickly. Knocking down the edge a little bit on the tail end there. I'm going to remove that tape. And we're going to do a little sanding on the bottom here. It's not really necessary other than to knock down the nibs, but I'm just smoothing it down a little bit, which is good to do between each sweep. There's a few little spots that stick up proud, and we want to knock those down. Now we've established thus far in the area that I'm working a precise radius on the horizontal plane. That's from the tail light towards the front of the car. And we have that, we've accomplished that thus far. Now we know that there is a radius that runs from the style line down to the bottom of the quarter panel, which has to be created on this panel with the blade, which we will do with a vertical sweep, with the blade resting on the style line above and the line below. All that little imperfection in between doesn't really matter at all at this point. Now I've placed a piece of tape once again up on the style line, and I'm putting a little bit of dry guide coat there just to show me where the next sweep will go. We got 180 grit on the longboard, which is a hard block, and you'll see that it sands it quite quickly. It moves it down because we have a shape that's very accurate. Every time we run the blade over it, we create a shape in that area that is factory precise, just beautiful radius, unbroken from end to end. Now we've knocked this down a little bit. We can see where we need to do our next fill on the right side of the original fill, which we expected. We sand it right down to the tape. That's our style line. And it's looking pretty good. We don't want to block it too much because we still have more sweeps to do. We're going to go down from that style line to the bottom of the quarter panel when we do our vertical sweep. But for now, we have a couple little high spots, which I'm going to use my hammer to, it's a unique hammer. It's from the Proto Tool Company. It's about 40 years old. I don't know if you can buy them anymore, but I love that little hammer. It works fantastic. I've tapped them down. I'm applying my plastic filler to that area on the right of the original sweep, and we're completing this area with a sweep. Moving it down, it moves and organizes the plastic filler. You can see how it meters out the plastic filler on the right to blend it right into the paint and into the left, into the area that we've already completed. Now I'm taking this extra filler and just sticking it down at the bottom, and just to cover up some of the rough spots that I missed in my last sweep. It just makes it a little bit nicer. I will be doing a vertical sweep in this area, so it really is not too critical, but the nicer you get it along the way, the better. And I'll also put some on the right side of the original sweep I made, just to complete that section also. Moving it down, getting a nice smooth transition. It blends it into the paint, so we have a really nice shape thus far. And I have some little pinholes that I'm filling up right here, pressing it very tightly. I'm not applying any Bondo really to it other than just a really tightly pressed coat. And that'll fill those up, making that something I don't have to do later. Now I'm taking the 180 grit on a finished DA and I'm knocking that area down that I just filled up top. And this should complete the repair up top. It's imparted a beautiful horizontal radius through that area, and we're just knocking it down a little bit, smoothing it over so we can do our blocking. Remember, I do all of this with 180 grit or 150 grit. I'm not doing any shaping to speak of. It's the blade that's doing all the shaping. Now I'm applying my dry guide coat, and we're going to do some blocking, and we'll see just how quickly it comes into shape. We got 180 grit, and we're moving across this area, and you can see that it's turning white pretty quickly, which means that it's falling into perfect shape very quickly, because the blade has imparted a beautiful mechanical shape to that area, which looks like will look like a factory panel when it's done, and that's the goal, of course. Okay, we have a nice line down here for the style line, which we will use to do our vertical sweep when we get to that point on the bottom section. As for now, we're just lightly knocking it down, just knocking off any nibs, smoothing it off, giving the plastic filler a little bit of tooth, and preparing it for the next sweep. Now the top section we'll complete sanding that. But first we want to kind of clean things up a little bit, remove this tape, and remove the tape at the style line, and prepare it for the next sweep. Okay, we have found another little dent towards the front of that section up top, above the style line, which we've block sanded and located. Now we're going to tape the quarter panel above the style line, and we're going to do our vertical sweep I've been talking about. You have to in order to get a precise factory shape, you have to control the radius in both directions. In a panel like this, we have a radius running horizontally, which I've been speaking about in this video from the start. And now I'm going to do a vertical sweep, which will give me a radius that will be factory perfect from the style line down to the bottom of the quarter panel. I'm using both of those areas to support the blade and to give me that perfect radius. Positioning my hands on the tape at the style line and creating a perfect radius in this area, covering up all the other little things that we saw along the way are not an issue anymore. In an area like this, you have to do it in sections because you have a flare that interferes with just one great sweep, which you can do on a lot of cars, but not on this one when you have a wheel flare. But I'll show you how we accomplish that. Now we're going to fill with a little extra Bondo I have, that dent that we discovered above the style line towards the front of the quarter panel when we were finishing the sanding in that whole area. I like to move around a bit. It's like a puzzle. You're piecing it together. I got our 180 grit, and we're going to sand this little area to where I've made my pencil line, just to get it knocked down a little bit and get the overall shape nice and smooth and ready for the sweeps that I'm going to do next. You can see that all these sweeps, none of them are superhuman by any stretch of the imagination. They are pretty straightforward, and with just a little bit of practice, you can do the same thing. It's not as intimidating as you'd think. What would be intimidating is to spread Bondo over this whole thing and to try to bring this shape into perfection. It's not going to happen. So I've knocked it down a little bit. Hit it a little bit more. And the section towards the rear, this from there on out is perfect, but we need to fill this one section. I have to do this separately because of the flare. I have to approach it with a different angle using the blade. But the same principles apply. It will fill to where it needs to be filled, where I'm holding my hands on the blade, and it'll meter it down to 0, and it'll fill that low spot, and life will be good. See, I'm marking the two areas. I want to stay within that perimeter with my hands, with the span of the blade. And that will complete that area down at the bottom and maintain that precise radius that runs from the taillight to the door jamb. And we're maintaining that right now by approaching it this way. few test sweeps. Now I'm applying my plastic filler, just putting it right along the edge of that line that I drew with the pencil, because I don't need to go any further than that. Making sure I got a good adhesion, a good covering. And now we're going to take the blade and move down it, holding it tightly on both ends where I applied my pencil line, and smoothing it to perfection. This is maintaining the precise radius horizontally and vertically, because it has both a correct vertical radius in the paint area on the right and on the area that I just completed my vertical sweep on the left. So we're just filling this little section like a puzzle. Beautiful. Now we have a little bit of extra plastic filler that I want to remove, because I know that it is overfill, and I'll do that with the spring steel spreader. Again, you can buy these at the paint store. You just have to round them and sharpen them, and voila, you'll be able to trim off plastic filler that you know is overfill, making the job much cleaner and easier along the way. I've retaped the style line and the flare on the bottom. I got 180 grit, and I'm just going to lightly smooth over this, just smoothing the surface down a little bit, getting it ready to block, and we're getting close to finishing this job. You can see that the many steps that we've taken, none of them very difficult, none of them really that intimidating. Unless you're not using the blade, it's really a doable repair, one that can be financially rewarding as well as very satisfying to create a surface that rivals factory precision. I've got that sanded down, and we're going to change a piece of sandpaper, I believe. We'll blow it off, and we will apply our dry guide coat in just that area. The rest of it we're not worried about right now, because it all has really great shape. This is the last area that we're kind of bringing into shape. This paper is used, so it'll cut it a little bit slower, but it's still knocking it down pretty quickly, and it will reveal the remaining low spots. We just do some simple sanding here. Again, this is not all that technical. It moves pretty quickly. I'm going to change the paper, and then we'll complete sanding this and see where we need to go in terms of our final fill. I've replaced it with another sheet of 180 grit, and we're going to knock it down. It sands pretty quickly with a fresh sheet of 180 grit. Again, this has a beautiful shape. It's like sanding bodywork that you've already done, sanding the primer on it. It knocks it down about the same speed. Because we have a perfect shape, we're not trying to shape and figure out what's going on in terms of the deviations that may occur. We have a little low spot there and one through the center, which in finishing this blocking, we'll see it a little more clearly. Now we're blocking the area that we have both done horizontal sweeps and vertical sweeps on, and it's in perfect shape, and we're just knocking it down. And we can see how quickly it knocks down, even with 180 grit. This type of repair can take place over the course of a day and be quite satisfying and quite remarkable in its final appearance. Mind-boggling, actually, for those that don't use the blade, because it's near impossible to get a true radius, an unbroken radius across a panel in one direction, let alone in both directions, as it was from the factory. All of these contours and shapes took many, 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 many hours to accomplish when this car body was being done up in a clay buck. But you can see by using those areas that are still intact, you can tap into that shape and convey it across the entire area that you're working. I'm going to replace that piece of paper and complete my sanding. Now we can see after completing the sanding that there's a little bit of low spot right here and another one right here, which we saw earlier. We have two little dents that we found that we have to repair also, because this job was sold as a new quarter panel that we decided to repair. It has to look like a brand new quarter panel. I'm placing the plastic filler up top here and doing my sweep on that area. Again, it will blend into the paint to the right of the area I'm working, and into the plastic filler on the left, which we've already completed and has a perfect shape. Blend it into the paint perfect, into the center of the quarter panel, which is perfect, so we're good there. We're applying plastic filler on the last remaining low spot in that broader area. And we'll just simply transition across it, keeping out of the other sweep that I just made so I don't mess that up at all. I'm going to remove the plastic filler from the blade edge and do a sweep from the other angle, from the bottom up. Give me a little bit better advantage here. And I'm happy with that. Looks really good. Now I'm going to take a little bit of that plastic, stick it down here on the flare, which are those two little dents that we found. Now that we come to the end of this repair, I look for any remaining dents when I'm doing a repair on a complete panel. Doing my sweep here across those two little dents. Oftentimes with small dents like this, you can just knock down the surface, do a sweep over it with mud, block it, and it's done very easily. And I'm filling a little bit of imperfection I see in the plastic up top there, and a little bit on the bottom, just minor imperfections, air bubbles, whatever you may find in the plastic filler, a really tightly pressed coat. Now I'm knocking down the dents on the flare. And getting those ready to block out. Now I know that some viewers will say that I would just rough it out, coat the entire quarter panel with Bondo, and sand it down to perfection, all in one shot, real fast like. Well, just like Michelangelo finding David in a hunk of marble, it's easier said than done. Back in the real world, I'll show you how it's possible to do this with simple steps, which we are making in all of these basic sweeps and precise contouring techniques. Lightly sanding the section up there that we did our two sweeps on, and then we will block those out along with the flare that we fixed a couple little things in also. Let's apply our dry guide coat, which I really like using. It's unlike spray guide coat. You don't have to wait for it to dry. It doesn't clog the paper, and it gives you a really good indication where you're at. Well, we can see that that top section there below the style line has completely sanded out. Any little dark spots that you may see are actually the plastic filler covering over the guide coat, and the guide coat just shining through a little bit, but it's perfectly straight. Now we have all of our bodywork done except for that last little dent that we found up top when we were sanding that section and completing it. We'll knock it down with the DA 180 grit, and then we will finish that off, and we're close to revealing the masterpiece. Knock this down slightly just to get it to make it nice to sand with the block so it doesn't clog the paper, and it sands real nicely. We'll apply some of our dry guide coat, open up the door and get it out of the way, and block it down. You can see we didn't have to do any repairs on the door jamb or anything like that. All of that would have to have been replaced if you replace the quarter panel, along with a whole lot of other things. So it really is quite a savings of time and money, along with the other attributes I mentioned earlier. Okay. All of the bodywork on this panel is completed with total precision. I'm just going over a little bit to knock off any little nibs or whatever might have come on there, just smoothing it a little bit. Now in this area down here where the flare meets the broader area of the quarter panel, I am going to smooth that in with a curved spreader where it's a half round, where I just kind of smooth it in, and to create a nice controlled curved transition into the flare. We'll remove the tape, and with a rubber tube with sandpaper, I smooth that curve over real quick like. This goes pretty quickly, and it just finishes that transition from the broader quarter panel into the flare. It makes it really nice, so there's no variations or distortions in that area. And then I come back with a block that is a hard block, has a curve from edge to edge, so it's like a half round block that I will, but not a small half round, a rather large half round, and I'll blend it into that curve. That makes a perfect transition. We can see that we have precise shaped panel finished in 180 grit, ready for paint. Let's see what it looks like. Well, we can see that it is a beautiful shaped panel, just like a brand new panel. A precise radius in both directions. You can't tell it from a brand new panel, which of course we had to achieve in order to sell the job as such. Again, a beautiful shape, and a great looking panel. Thanks for watching. Show all your friends this video, and by all means, get your own set of the blades and start having fun yourself. Thanks for watching.